Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, the Ruler School Circuit Series now taking orders on our Q3 2024 circuit kits, and our guest lecturer members, Fight Ramen. Class is in session. Hello, rulers. Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will to your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast. It's Office Hours, featuring myself, DMO73, and I'm joined, as always, by Mike Rance.
Jeremy, you trapped me in this box.
I did trap you in this box. And joined today by special guest, Shunpo. Shunpo, how's it going, buddy?
Hey.
Doing great. Yourself?
I'm doing good, except for having a massive headache, but we're getting there.
That's fair.
We're getting there. Shunpo, for those of you who don't know, is a very long-time member of the channel, big supporter. We love having you, and a great playtest partner and fellow green-black ABC enthusiast, and has gotten into doing a lot more content creation recently. There's a link to his channel in the description down below. Go check out that stuff, including another person giving their perspective on tournament reports, which is always nice to have someone to have a different perspective of Paul when we do tournament reports on these events. Speaking of, that's why you're here and not Paul, because Paul's not here, so we're like, another person who does tournament reports, let's get Shunpo in here. It worked out.
There we go. Hey.
We don't have a ton of business to talk about today. It hasn't been a super busy week outside of this weird, 2-week rush to the end of the competitive season from Caseyville to the online GP this coming weekend, and then another 2 weeks, and then another online, and then we have next month. So not a ton of news, though we did get the new reveal trailer for Zaki today, so we'll be going over the front and back side of Zaki a little bit there, giving our thoughts on that, and just our thoughts about the meta as a whole, the kind of rush to the end of the season. It is kind of weird how the rest of the GPs are this format. So we're going to kind of talk about that leading into Worlds. And then also a little bit of an announcement. If you haven't already, told your story about the Ruler School Circuit Kits Q3, which is the 2 Friends and a Cat mat. The link to that is in the description. Orders for that close this Friday, so be sure to get your group involved in that. And also, we can officially announce that the August 3rd and 4th Ruler School online event for the Q3 will have the exclusive this is my test version of it, so obviously it says Headmaster instead, the first ever Uber quarter circuit mat available just for the champion, exclusively for the Ruler School online one. If that gets enough attendance and is shown to be popular enough, we can start to pitch the idea of having the champion mats for all of the circuits moving forward being Uber design. So more information will be coming soon on how to sign up for that, but stay tuned for that. Just send it to you. I mean, no.
Dan, if I can't get it, you can't get it. Get in line, bucko.
What placing was I at Caseyville again? First in my ABC pod, and not present in the main tournament.
Jeremy's a power player. Undefeated.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to say that I did do an ultimate power move, and I successfully, using only words, no card resources, I was fully tapped out, using only my words, negotiated my way out of having all of my stones being destroyed by a replicant Odin. Raw politicked my way out of getting my stones blown up, and then proceeded to win the game.
Jeremy for President 2025.
There we go. Raw politics. But Shunpo.
Hi.
What was your experience like in Caseyville? You played in Caseyville. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it was honestly a lot of fun. When Thoth first came out, I know people were like, oh, Lehen's the be-all, end-all. But as we had more tournaments come in, like Converging Wills and Caseyville and Spain as well, we realized that it's not just Lehen or bust. There is just a wide plethora of rulers that can be really good. And you have actual games. As you said, you have games that go till Stone Call 6, 7, 8 at times as well. Mm-hmm. And it's been a lot of fun, honestly.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway from the weekend too. Not only at looking at like the tournament breakdown of like what was brought to the event, but also ended up topping, right? So like going into the event, we were like, oh, Mindless Moonstart and Lehen are like the only two decks in the format. It's some kind of those. Those are the only two things you can play, blah, 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 blah. And was evidenced by the most represented decks going into the event were Lehen and Mindless Moonstart. And then we had one Mindless Moonstart convert, and out of the 10 Lehens, one barely converted because of breakers. Like there was just like the meta breakdown in the top 8 was a very clear indicator that player skill, player tech, and meta calls still play a huge factor in this tournament season, which is kind of awesome that both of the two remaining GPs are this format, because we get into this weird like, okay, so how deep are we going to go? Are we going to play the Caseyville decks because we think people are going to be playing the Berlin decks? Do we play the decks that beat Caseyville because we think everyone's going to be playing Caseyville? Do we beat the decks that beat the decks that beat Caseyville because everyone's going to want to beat Case? Like, how far do we go? Do we go all the way back around to Odin? Like, where are we at in this cycle? And it makes for some interesting content and makes for some interesting matches. So it was pretty cool to see. Mike, you could play Val 2 in sideboard 14 rulers. Yeah, you absolutely could. Go for it.
Correct. You just put them out. You just put them out on the field. Say, these are my god arts that I have access to.
No one's playing Lorite.
Put them back in the box.
I mean, no one's playing Lorite. You can
go.
flip Valentina, and she'll get her activated or her trigger to resolve and reveal all 14 of them. Setting the stage before recovery. Flip Valentina 2. Got to go.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the real. That's value.
Look at all these gods arts.
Gee, Bill, hug your mom once you have 14 gods arts.
Crazy. Yeah, the meta was really interesting. It was a lot of fun. You know, some big takeaways I think that people from Caseyville were not giving green enough credit. People were like, oh, well, with Mirror, you would never want to play a green ruler because you just want to play Mirror. And then the Lindley brothers were like, bet. and Paul Martinson as well was like, bet. And, you know, also Daniel Moreno walking in with Inferno with Yggdrasil, Lenneth Yggdrasil Inferno. So, like, you know, 4 of the top 8 decks, like, couldn't play discounted mirrors. And it was just like, you don't need it. So that was a cool takeaway for me. We have 2 more events left this season for the online events. There's an online GP for Games and Geek this Friday, and then we have one on the 17th and 18th in August. So both are in this season. 17th and 18th is 1 week before the pre-release for Road to the Sacred or Battle of the Sacred Ruins. So still this format. And I'm honestly like not upset about that, because I think this format still has a lot left to give, and I think this format still has a lot of exploration, and even in the known quantities there's still a lot of cool counterplay and tech choices. For instance, you talk about this, Shumpo, in your video, is like, and it's even in the thumbnail of your most recent video, which I love. It's just like no one properly brought Hydria. They were like, man, this card's so good. Nobody brought it. It's just like, wait a minute, what were we thinking?
Imagine reading like a 6th floodgate and just being like, nah.
Well, I think it's because Shumpa, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts too, because you played in the environment and you played IU in the Caseyville event, right? IU doesn't necessarily care about Hydria because you're just kind of like filtering once a turn. It's not really drawing, right? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of ignore it. But why do you think that so many people like just put Hydria at the wayside? Like, what do you think contributed to that?
Yeah, so initially when the card was released, people were going crazy over it, and I'm sure you saw it as well on Discord, right? But as people were getting ready for like, okay, we can't have too many like draw cards or anything like that, so they adjusted their deck accordingly. But then it got to a point where the Hydra was then no longer that great because people were able to play around it. So like, oh, well, this is just a useless card now, and they took it out. and I was one of those people who did that. It goes in the main board,
Rough.
and then went to the side, and then just got cut.
Yeah, we certainly
So-
saw that play out for the meta call that was Matt Lindley's build. They did talk about how their deck certainly could still play through Hydria, which I think is good deck design, but it certainly makes it a lot harder for that deck to go off with the Gnarly combo. I think the thing to me is I don't think going into this format, I don't think I would have ever taken Hydrius out of at least the board, because I look at things like Mindless Rouge Dart, and I look at things like Gates still being, I was one of the people who still thought that Gates was still a deck to consider and like be mindful of, and you want to just like have a good closer. But also there's things like even against IU, right, you're playing things like Aphrodite to try to like, you know, replenish your life, or Magna and Lenneth to draw 2 cards. Like there are still these like incremental +1 draws that I think Hydria would have just been a good include in general. It's one of those weird things about like very similar, like I think that's also a good indicator of like Spirit of the Mirage Ruins, right? That card didn't honestly see a ton of play at top tables, but like shaped the meta by existing. Right? We saw a very similar kind of perspective there of like, well, people just weren't playing cheetah and stuff, so that they just didn't want to get hosed by a Spirit, which kind of does its job. But I think in the case of Hydria, like I still would want to have it in the back pocket, because you don't want to get blown out by things like, oh, Heavenly Magic, draw 4. Wait. No, stop. Wait, stop. No. And so, you know, obviously I think it'll be interesting. Is it turn 3 or afterwards Hydria viable? The thought of casting only after I can protect it with Providence to draw my cards. You just have to use it from hand, Royad. The God's Art is pay 1 blue, reveal it in your hand. She doesn't have to be on field to get the God's Art off. You just reveal her. So it works out pretty well. Reading the card. Turns out reading is hard. Caseyville did prove that Forceful players still don't know how to read. I think in general.
Some things never change.
Some things never change. We did have to stop the match on camera at one point in time because the guy just went, God's Art my list? Flip my list? When the mood chart wasn't flipped. And I was like, no. That's not how that works. It says J- ruler named mood chart. My list didn't replace his 1 free will at the beginning of the game with 3 will whenever. Like, that's not a downgrade. Alejandro says hi to me and you, Shumpo, but not to Mike. Mike does not get a hi from Alejandro.
Hello, Alejandro.
Goodbye, Alejandro.
So, yeah, I mean, there's certainly some things about, and I think that's the other piece, too, of maybe why Lehen didn't convert as well, is because we heard that there were a lot of people who were on Alejandro who were on Lehen.
Wow.
Wow. Spicy. Who were on Lehen, who maybe didn't get a ton of reps in it and were maybe just like, oh, well, this is just the best deck. I need to try to play it, which Lehen is complicated as hell to play at top tables. And we saw a lot of Lehens get into mirror matches that ended in draws. Like we saw it a lot. So that also played into a factor in the environment as well. You're now a ruler and a resonator and a chant. Look at you. Just got to get you onto an edition. That's all we need. That's all we need, buddy. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn. Walking out of this weekend, you know, Shupo, I imagine you're playing in the remaining online GPs.
Yeah.
Do you have like everyone? Thank you, Mike. What do you think with these 2 last events? Obviously, feel free to kind of keep yourself hidden text quiet. But are there like big takeaways that you came from for Caseyville to prep you for the remaining 2 online events? Is it thought about a potential ruler swap, stay on IU, how to change it? Kind of what goes into your mind?
Yeah, I've been honestly on the fence. I've been considering changing my rulers. Odin was definitely a ruler I was considering, just because I was kind of tired of drawing with burn. That's what happened actually. I had two Almir Smooth Arts that I matched on round 1 and round 5, and drew both, which is unfortunate. So I feel like Odin was good, but then you have to always respect the decks that have good amount of spot removal. So that's something. But I think this weekend I am just probably gonna play IU. Won't be surprised, but I will change stuff in the main board inside accordingly, and I will have my Hydra.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
So that'll definitely be there. But yeah, just certain matchups. I feel like Lehen isn't, after playing against it a lot with Holshizer and a couple other people. I do feel that Lehen isn't as bad, and I can kind of deal with it pretty well. At least with my deck, I feel pretty confident. But Burn, like the Inferno Burn, is kind of the rougher deck, and of Gates, because hard control just destroys IU.
Yeah, for sure. It certainly has its worst matchups. Inferno has proven itself to be the more resilient version of the Burns in this environment, which I think no one is surprised by now that we've seen results. You looked at like the results of Lehen versus Burn, and it's like, oh well, if you burn me down, I'll just use flowers and I'll just get right back up to high level, and you're like, okay, well, that was okay, you got me. So going to this burn package, especially with Milas Moonstart having Chivalry's Tears and Magic of Trust and Love, puts them in a very interesting position to be able to fight it out. Which then makes me wonder, like, if we see things like Yokoshima. Yokoshima has a similar amount of fighting that it can do in response to an Inferno to try to burn someone out. Can also play stuff that gives itself barrier with Strange Miracle. So there's a lot of things that can be done still. So I would not be surprised to see some spicy new stuff in the top 8 of this coming weekend and some spicy plays, but we'll have to see what comes out. I'd still be playing Seer Abdul. Yeah. the updated Seer Abdul, now that we've taken the results of the past few tournaments and kind of tweaked to what we expect the meta has been, is pretty solid. It feels pretty well rounded. I will say that I like 3-0'd a Gates deck, and it was like the easiest matchup of my life with the new changes. I was like, dang, this was not close. We took the Jeremy Lindley Misha like hyper Gates list, and we threw it up against Seer Abdul with the new text, and it was pretty one-sided. pretty one-sided. Turns out when you make Gates a blank card and also take away all their enter effects, those decks have a hard time. Crazy. Who would have thought? So enough about tournament stuff. We've got new cards, and you know who's going to talk about these new cards because he actually watched the video today? Mike Rance. Mike Rance!
I remembered to watch a thing today.
He did. He watched a thing today. So we got to talk about, I'm just going to read the card real quick, and then I want Mike to kind of give his first impressions. So we only really got the ruler for Zaki today. We saw a lot of artwork for a lot of the cards for Zaki, and we saw the chant that we've already talked about for Zaki. But we did get Zaki.
Although this chant does have some new implications.
Yeah, with the new abilities, sure. Yeah, for sure. So, Student Detective League star Zaki is our water ruler. She is a human/student. You may play the
That's
judgment.
Class G support right there. Let's go.
Let's go. You may play judgment process of rulers you control while they are rested. Whenever you play a card with investigate, gain a water clue. Good old item area coming back in. Judgment of pay 1 blue. Play this judgment process only if you control 7 or more clues. And then she has a solo mode text, which is before the game starts, you may mulligan twice instead of once. And you may play chance with investigate as though they had quick cast. Keep in mind, as though they had quick cast does not mean that they have quick cast, which means
you can't just
fair spell it, cannot stop them. Important implication. And then you get some cool flavor text there. Very clearly what this is indicating to us off the bat is that one of the 2 XRs in this set will be some form of tag, like for these rulers, because otherwise why give her a solo mode? That makes no sense. So some pretty big kind of lean in there. And then just to flip her over to the backside here,
solo mode.
Solo mode is pretty cool. Like, it's a pretty cool way to, like, with the influence of tag, like, give you a choice, right? Like, this ruler has some benefit to trying to play solo. I think that the fact that Zaki and herself makes it so that you can judgment while tapped for stone is huge. to give her as a partner ability, right? It does all kinds of cool stuff. So Zaki on the backside is an imperishable barrier. Your opponent plays with their hand revealed as long as you control 10 or more clues. Whenever you play a card with Investigate, gain 2 water clues. And if you're playing solo mode, whenever your opponent plays a spell, if you control 15 or more clues, you banish a clue and draw a card once per turn. And she gains a God's Art. Mystery solved. 1 blue and banish 20 clues. You win the game. I want to say just off the bat, the design of this alt win con with the fact that she has perfect hand knowledge is beautiful. It's actually like, oh, it's a God's Art. You can only ever do it once. What about Lorite? What about Mirror? What about... She knows whether you have it or not. She knows whether it's safe to do this. And it's instant speed. So she could just be like, cool, I have perfect hand knowledge. Before draw your turn, God's Art. Game over. Like, very, very cool. She's also designed without stats, which was correct. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Mike, the floor is yours.
So, I'm very glad to see that we are getting... First of all, as much as I don't like the fact that tag has become such a, kind of mainstay staple of Force World recently that they have to have solo mode on there.
Sure.
I'm losing some internet.
You're back. You're back.
I'm back. All right. Cool. I had a blip. Wouldn't be a usual podcast without me hitting one of those. But no, I do like the fact that the choice does give her like an alt win condition instead of just being a support ruler. Like it definitely feels like they're leaning into this a little bit more. I don't have any huge thoughts on her like just general ability kit as a whole. I do think that the fact that we are getting another water ruler with like a grind game and potential playing on kind of potential the same way we had Lehen, I do think Zaki is worse off than Lehen at that game plan for the most part. So that's obviously really interesting. The fact that she gives you that like judgment ability, which means that you can get some actual added benefit out of stuff that taps rulers for effects, is kind of cool. I feel like there's something you can play around with there. That's interesting to me. The thing that's most interesting to me, though, is absolutely going to be what that support kit looks like for her investigate stuff. Because I, a long time ago, remember a deck called Cheshire Cat's Assistance. And when I see something that has Impulse Draw, it makes me think, how can I abuse the extra cards in hand with all the zero-cost cards that we have that I need to play immediately? And my first thought, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, the Investigate chant, is that 1 or 2 mana?
It's 1.
Very good. So, now my brain gets to thinking, what Regalia, if you discard it, produces a blue? Is that Deep Blue, the Phantom Board?
Well, how are we casting these zero-cost Regalia on your opponent's turn?
Hang on, what do you mean by that?
Well, so Investigate specifically gives you draw at the beginning of the next turn. So it's like during your opponent's turn.
Oh, I can't read though, so it's great.
He was so excited.
That's my favorite part of this.
He was so excited.
I was so excited to just relive my dreams of just making the game miserable again.
And then we just reminded him about the text of the card, and it's solved.
Okay.
Investigate carries over.
There is 2 walls of text on that video. One with the corrected investigate and one with the incorrect investigate.
No,
you can forgive me.
No, they both have the same.
Text.
They both have the same text. So the idea is that they're both function exactly the same. The difference between the red text and the white text is that one was how investigate would read on a chant, and one how investigate would read on an entity. So when an entity with investigate is cast, as the card enters the field, the player gains Investigate. When a chant with Investigate is cast, as the chant resolves, the player gains Investigate. So that's an interesting thing, too, about Investigate 2, is that it's the player gaining the ability, which means it dodges things like Girl Staring At, right? It gets around that, because you, the player, are gaining the ability, not the thing that you're casting. And it's not an enter trigger to investigate. It's just as the thing resolves, you get it, essentially. That's the wording.
I feel like I still find something to do with this. I feel like there's some kind of I feel like there's some cheese tucked away in Zaki's toolkit, and I am going to be the first to say, if you try to play Zaki as a grind game, I do think Lehen is better at it. I don't think that the Clue game plan is going to do
We're
the
hunting for
grind game
clues.
potential people think it is.
We're hunting for
Hunt for
clues.
clues.
It comes down
The
to
clue
what she
is,
can
like-
burn clues on. It comes down to what she can burn clues on. If she can burn clues on other stuff, I think she's got some pretty good potential. Ayush, as a longtime water ruler player, the amount of time that I've seen you be playing IU is a very long time. What are your thoughts on Zaki?
I think she's interesting. Just kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, I think it'll depend on also how quickly she can get these clues. Because I think it'll kind of matter. So how quickly can we flip and see our opponent's hand and get that knowledge of how to, like, I guess, go about our game plan. But I do also like them adding solo mode to this, to the rulers. And I'm assuming that all the rulers will have some sort of solo mode attached to them, so you can kind of choose. You have this like freedom to choose of, hey, do I want to tag and get benefits of 2 rulers, or get like a really strong benefit off this 1 ruler as well?
Yeah, I think.
So. I think it's nice.
Yeah, I think there are 7 rulers in this set, according to the cell sheet. 7 rulers / J rulers, and my current thought is that everybody's gonna have a solo mode, and except for I think maybe the partner for Bianchi. Like, I think that Bianchi will have a solo mode, and then his partner won't have a solo mode, because I think she's very clearly designed to be used with Bianchi, just like in character design, because they were introduced as the 2 of them, so that makes me think that they're like a dedicated kind of tag concept. But then maybe Bianchi himself has like a solo mode version, or if you don't want to play her, you can use her. You can use just Bianchi by himself. But that's the weather mechanic, bros. The weather is pollution. Let's go.
Weather's rain. Let's go.
Let's go. So yeah, I think the idea of, the difference between regular versus solo mode is, I think, pretty startling for Zaki. Like, being able to judgment your partner ruler while rested is obviously helpful. Zaki giving the hand advantage when she's judgmented if you have a partner is like, sure, I guess. And having maybe if there's something that cares about having more water jade rulers or something, it comes down to the extension rule, I think, is like how good tagging her even is. Because right now I don't really see any benefit to not just playing her solo. That being said, to go back to what I said before, the fact that she does not have stats is gigantic. Because right now she is an imperishable barrier, very hard to kill. And we've had things that have had imperishable barrier in the current format who just die to stat negs, and that's really frustrating. But the fact that she doesn't have stats means that a stat neg strategy cannot bypass it, right? So you have to go into something to actually like remove all of her abilities and then somehow hard kill her, which is like even more of an expense, right? So we're thinking like a girl staring at plus a hard J ruler kill, not damage, because you can't damage her because she doesn't have stats.
Like an attack order or something, right?
Yeah, like an attack order, right? So a little bit more work to get rid of her, which I think is correct. So that's nice. And again, if you have all this hand advantage, you'll know whether it's the right time to fight over your opponent or something like that. Although I do not envy the judge who has to mitigate and manage the idea of, well, I'm at 15 counter. I have 10 counters. Play with your hand revealed. Cool. Cast girl staring at. Okay, at what point in time do I get to lose your hand knowledge? Do I get to see the card that you drew because it's technically part of the resolution of girl staring at, and then I don't get to see your hand? Or do I not get to know the card that you just revealed or that you just drew? Like, the implications are a little wonky there. But it'll be fun. I'm excited. Alt win cons are always fun. You got to try to win the game in a weird way. It's just fun. Vampire 989.
Swear to God, if
Personally,
somebody doesn't enter. I was gonna say, if somebody doesn't enter a tournament with Zachy and call it Scooby Doo, where are you? I'm gonna be upset.
the mystery gang. Get in the mystery machine. Personally, in the upcoming set with support for the eroded Carlina, I would not be surprised if there are new extension rules that give their corresponding tag Fallen Angels solo mode in some form. That would be more like a sub-ruler than a extension rule. Extension rules are kind of designed to incorporate the idea of tag, whereas this sub-rulers are more designed for what you're kind of talking about. How do you expel cards only until end of turn? I think you're misreading investigate. You keep the cards revealed until the end of the turn, and at the end of the turn, expel them. That's sad you've been missing all the competitive events this season. Listen, you had a spot in our hotel room that you chose not to take, Baojune. That's on you, buddy. And then, yeah, I like I said, it's kind of a slow week. I don't really have a ton to talk about. It was really unfortunate that they showed like 5 card arts for Zachy and none of their text. I was like, man, we'll get to see what Zachy does. Oh, we are just getting to see what Zachy does. Nothing else. Nothing else. But that's okay. Short weeks are fine, especially when I have a headache. Wasn't a choice really. Life happens. That's fair. That's valid. That's valid. Just some housekeeping notes for this week. We have our tournament report for Caseyville is coming up tomorrow. Wednesday of this week, we will have finally getting the Joan Kane deck profile up on the channel. I think we'll have another deck profile potentially for a Lucy deck list later this week because we're working on getting a Lucy feature match, but I might show you guys the Lucy deck list. And then on Friday and Saturday, we have the GP to stream, the online GP, where I'm sure Shunpo is going to rock it out in top 8, and we're going to cheer him on and get him his invite to Worlds.
Yeah, buddy.
Alejandro, what do I think about the change of the frame for solo mode? I like it a lot. I mean, it doesn't really I don't even really see it as a change. I just see it as it's pretty, that they're just utilizing more of the text box.
Yeah, it's just a clean use of space for the most part. I don't really think it's anything crazy.
Yeah,
we've had more text crammed into cards. Like you've read Athena or whatever.
Any of the Olympians.
I need a magnifying glass for that shit. Every time somebody plays, anytime. Okay, Shimpa, the last time you played Olympian IU against me in the OLS, I had to literally go on Force of Wind and read the effects, and I still don't know what any of those cards do. But I just knew that I lost.
Someone tried to ask me the other day.
Poseidon's on the field.
Speaking of the Olympians, someone tried to ask me the other day, it's like with the reworking protocol, it was like, unban Zeus, you cowards. Zeus did nothing wrong. And someone was like, I beg you to tell me 5 things off the top of your head that Zeus did wrong. I bet you can't. And I went, oh, want to bet? 1. Took a singleton ruler and made it so incredibly consistent that it might as well have not been a singleton ruler. Created a near tier 0 meta where a deck that was killing people on turn 1 still lost to Zeus in finals of a GP, being piloted by a person who had been playing Zeus for 3 weeks. 3, introduced the entirety of the Olympians package, cards that have the most text crammed onto them as any card in Force of Will's history. That's 3 things, bro. We can made order search enter triggers. That's the things that trigger their enter abilities when searched. Why did we do that?
I'm gonna throw another thing wrong with him out there. In what fucking universe is Mount Olympus a 12 Olympian? Why is the house an Olympian?
We have 14 12 Olympians. It's great. It's hilarious.
Why do Piranha Plant have bone in it?
Just like we have 6, or I think it's 8 12 apostles. We have 8 12 apostles, and we have 14 12 Olympians. Let's go.
And how many 12 Sacred Knights do we have now? Are we at 12? Or
I think 9. I think we're at 9.
Perfect. That's all we need. Ship it, print it.
9
don't need to do anything else
with that. Yeah, for sure. But
Or
yeah,
Sacred Beast, they might as well. No, you know what? There are 5 Sacred Beasts. Alice counts. Anyway.
Alice does count. Alice does count as a sacred beast. Yep, for sure.
Oh God.
8, 12 apostles. That's kind of sad. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Gil-Lapis
Hey,
couldn't.
9.
Gil-Lapis couldn't get the whole band together.
Nah, he really
couldn't do
couldn't.
it. But yeah, like I
He was
said,
too busy searching. You win the game. You win the game.
yeah, for sure. But that's gonna be it for tonight. Again, a little bit of a shorter night, not much, a ton of news. Hopefully we'll be back next week to talk about the cool results and Shunpo coming back on with his top 8 and winning of the event, so he has his invite to Worlds. But we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
But that'll be and again, definitely go check out Shunpo's channel. There's a link in the description below. Does great work, does great analysis of the tournaments. He's been doing really good right there. A lot of funny memes as well, better than I can do. And as always, this is myself, DMO73, and I've enjoyed my Mike rants.
The next 12 Olympian. Let's go. I'm
Let's
the 15th.
go. And Shunpo
Best luck to everyone in the GP.
saying class dismissed.